Hi, so this episode is going to break all the rules. Firstly, because it's hardly been planned. Don't let that put you off listening. It's still going to be a good one. I wanted to just say hi because I feel like ever since I started YouTube, which is a while now, my podcast has felt very put together, which is fine, but it's just less me. And I wanted to just say hi for those of you who, if you're brand new and watching or listening to this, hi. I do produce some really great stuff and I hope that you stick around. And if you've been listening or a part of my world for a little while, I hope that this gives you a little bit of behind the scenes and just getting to know me as a person a little bit more too. So what I've done is I have asked ChatGPT for some questions for what my audience might want to ask me. I'm not going to pretend that I have 50,000 questions that my audience has asked me because I don't. I am not quite that popular. And so I've asked ChatGPT because it knows me very well and I do use it quite a lot for my business, what questions you guys might want to know. So I'm going to just scroll through. I haven't pre-looked at these because I wanted to give you my off-the-cuff answer as if I was being live interviewed by a fake person who's sitting here, not in a creepy way, because I am alone right now, which is kind of nice. Means my kiddos are being looked after and they're happy. Let's see what questions pop up, and I'm going to answer them as best as I can. But hi, if we haven't met before, my name is Jacqui and pretty much I'm a graphic designer who flipped her whole business on her head about 5 years ago. Instead of doing design for business owners, I have started teaching business owners how to do it themselves. I teach you how to use Canva. I teach you how to think strategically as a business owner. I teach you design principles and I coach you to make sure that the graphics and the branding you're putting out for your business is actually helping to grow your business rather than making you feel really ashamed of what you're putting out there, not connecting with your audience, not looking professional and not growing your business. So let's get into some questions. The first one, there's a few different sections. I'm going to answer one from each section and then go back over if I need to. The first section is on branding. So question I'm going to answer is, how do you stay creatively inspired when you're in a rut? This happens a lot, even for me as a graphic designer. And I know that it happens lots for my students. So I'm actually excited to answer this one, hopefully give you some inspiration. So something to do when you're feeling creatively in a rut is to get out of that rut. The things that I find often is to get out of the rut. Great advice, Jacqui. The things that I find that actually stop people the most is feeling like they have to follow some rules that they're unclear on. I don't know about you, but if you tell me to draw a circle on a page, I won't be able to draw that circle because you need to tell me why I'm drawing the circle, how big I'm drawing the circle, for what purpose am I drawing the circle, what's going to happen to the circle after I draw the circle, does anything else need to fit into the circle? And I get overthinking of it. And if it's because we don't have a clear direction. And so for you and your business, often what happens is, or for me anytime, if I'm not clear on what someone wants to actually create and why they want to create it, I feel stuck. And so if you're feeling stuck for yourself, if you're not sure how to design a particular Instagram post, step back for a moment and just think, all right, why am I designing this? What is its purpose? What's its intention? Who am I trying to attract with it? And then start designing. Something else that kind of adds to that clarity or lack of clarity is not knowing your branding. So oftentimes if I have to design something for a brand or a business and they're like, oh, can you design me a post? I'm like, well, yeah, sure, but what are your fonts and what are your colors and what's your brand vibe and what's your brand message and who's your audience? If we don't have that clarity, it's really hard to actually answer the questions, because what happens is that we have, especially inside Canva, you can use any color in the world. You can use any font in the world. You have access to thousands of elements, thousands of templates, thousands of images. How are you meant to cull them down? And so having direction and to know what your purpose is and what the brand should actually look like helps you to think creatively again, because you've got some rules. I honestly believe that creativity flourishes when you have boundaries and rules to play within. It really helps to fight that shiny object syndrome as well. You can also hear from my voice, I've got a bit of a cold, so if I'm sounding a bit different than usual, that's the reason. Anyway, I digress. Creativity. Also, just to remember, I have to remember this too, is I'm not designing in a void. Sometimes I start designing for something and I'm like, hold on, why am I starting this from a blank Canva page? I've got two options that I usually go to. Firstly, I just search Canva templates for similar things that I'm designing. Like if I'm designing a carousel post for a client, I can search carousel posts and see what else is out there. You don't have to start every design from scratch, especially as a business owner. You're not a graphic designer that people are hiring you to make brand new from scratch designs like I try to do. You're someone who can use what already exists and tailor it to your brand. So checking what already exists on Canva as well as on Pinterest. I rarely start a brand or a design without doing research on Pinterest first. I use Pinterest as a glorified Google image search to get ideas. I might search coach carousel Instagram design or bright playful branding or font pairings or all these sorts of things to give me ideas, because chances are someone's already done a design that's going to then spark an idea in my brain that's going to then spark an idea for me to actually do for this client. And so not thinking you need to design from scratch or in a void is really helpful too. Right, I could share a lot more tips on creativity, but I'm going to stop there. Maybe I should do a whole episode on this once. I have done a whole, if you're in my DIY course or my club, there's a whole bonus masterclass on the creativity mindset that I share, so feel free to hit that up. If you can't find it, let me know. The next question is a Canva-based question, and it is, what are your favorite lesser-known Canva features? I was actually on a call today with a client, and I nearly shared it in an episode, but it's still a bit hard to share over a podcast, so I might do a YouTube tutorial on it very soon. So if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so to keep an eye on what I'm about to share. But in essence, she is in the club with me, and she's spent we've been working together for 6 months, and she's done her whole brand. She's made social media templates. She's about to launch her hair studio, which is really, really exciting, but she's still feeling overwhelmed with posting on social media. And that's a feeling that a lot of my clients have. And while I don't profess and pretend to be a marketing expert, I have run my own online business for 11 years and been on Instagram and marketing online for that time. So I have a few things and a few ideas up my sleeve. And so with my client on this call, we decided to map out a content planning kind of calendar thing. And I'll pop a picture of it on the screen now if you're watching on YouTube. But in essence, we created a whole spreadsheet inside Canva that is going to help her plan every single piece of her Instagram content for the whole month. We have all of the days listed on the left-hand side. She only wanted to post 3 times a week, so we've got spots for 3 different posts. Then we have a column for the type of post that it is, so whether she's wanting to do a carousel, a talking head reel, which is something she said she wanted to try to do more of, a picture or a quote, or just like text on the screen. So we kind of made some different sections on those. Then we made some different sections on the content pillars she wanted to share, so things like products or hair care tips or whatever it was, and we gave some different pillars. And then we gave a section for the date she's going to share that post, the time she's going to share that post, the status of that post, like is she written it, has she designed it, is it drafted, is it scheduled, has it been posted, and then a space for the content for that post, like listing out her ideas for that, and then another column for the caption of that post. And so this one spreadsheet inside Canva is listing out all of this information, so each month she can just go in, choose from her different pillars, choose from her different content types, and then design it in that same design. And so inside Canva, a recent update has now allowed us to not only do Canva sheets, which is brand new, but also allowing us to have multiple size designs inside one design. So she's going to have this one design per month of her business, and it's going to have a spreadsheet on the front page, and then the following pages after that is going to be her actual designs. It's going to be her carousel post. It's going to be her reel. It's going to be her text design post. And all of that is inside one Canva design in one easy to find spot. And then she can actually link that spreadsheet to different pages in that design, so she can then jump onto that thing maybe once a week, schedule out her post, make any final tweaks, and have everything ready. If she had a team, she could actually just pass that onto her team really quickly and easily. So if you want me to share a tutorial on that, please let me know below. Maybe send me a message on Instagram if you're listening on the podcast, or you can comment below if you're on YouTube to let me know if that would be a really helpful tutorial to see the breakdown of how I created that. But my answer is to that question of what is my favorite lesser known Canva feature. It's Canva Sheets, and I find it really, really helpful to kind of bring your whole business in. So I actually use Canva Sheets, Canva Docs, Canva Whiteboard, and Canva Designs all inside one Canva file design thing, so that I can then keep everything in one spot for a launch, for a podcast, for a month of content, whatever that is. All right, the next section I'm going to answer is the marketing section. And there's a question here that I chuckled at, and it says, do you think design or messaging is more important in marketing? And it's got in brackets, is this a trick question? It's not a trick question, but do I believe that design or messaging is more important? I cannot say my answer to that because I don't think there's an answer. So I so full-heartedly believe that marketing and messaging and design go so hand in hand, so much so actually inside my co-creation design club program. It's not just a design program. I have a guest coach coming in every single month to run a masterclass for my students on marketing, because I so believe that if you can have great design, but if there's not good marketing and messaging behind it, it will still fall flat. So the beautiful thing and the beautiful way that I like to picture our marketing system as a business owner is that we need design to do a few things. Firstly, it's going to be the thing that captures attention. If you have a really great messaging hook, but it's not readable or doesn't actually visually attract your audience, they're still not going to engage with it. So we need to have design that attracts our audience, that is really strategic in terms of like the hierarchy of it. Like, is the right piece of text the largest piece of text? Is it all readable? Is it actually strategically designed? And then that post can then capture in our audience. And if you've got great messaging, then they can read that post and actually feel it and understand it. Actually, I had a client, I was on a call with her recently, and she was like, when I look at your website, I just feel it. I don't even need to read it. I just understand what you're trying to say from the look. And I was like, man, that's a really big compliment. And to some extent, I think she's right. But also to some extent, I believe that you need the design to bring people in, capture their attention. Then we need the messaging to hold them and to educate them and to connect with them. And the design throughout this is then connecting with them, is creating recognizability through visual cues of this is consistently looking the same. Or if they see one post one day and another post the next day, that visual consistency can make recognizability for you. And again, if you have bad design but you've got a great message, then someone might read the first sentence, but then they can't actually read the next one, or they don't know where to look next and it feels overwhelming, so they just keep on scrolling. Whereas good design means that you can capture attention and get people to cohesively read through a design in a way that makes sense to them, because you've thought through the text hierarchy, you've thought through readability, you've made it visually interesting and not overwhelming, and then the messaging is what carries it home. But also design can help you also connect with your messaging. Like the good design should feel the same way that your messaging is making people feel. If your messaging is really nurturing and encouraging, your branding should feel that same way. But in contrast, if your messaging is really like action and playful and whoa, then again, your branding should feel that way too. So these are really married together and I cannot separate them apart. All right, now I'm up to the mum life/business life balance section that ChatGPT has asked me, and there's a really good questions here. I might even answer one or two of these. One is, what boundaries help you to switch off from work and be present with your kids? I'm answering this not because I have the answer, because I wanted to just be honest with you. I find this really hard. My goal this year, my word for the year was intentional, and it was because I wanted to be intentional with my work and also intentional with my family and my faith and just being intentional. I probably did a whole episode on it. I'm not doing amazing with that, to be honest with you. I keep on wanting to do too many things in my business that it means, and I'm thinking in the side of my head, back of my head, like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that. And so I'm finding I'm not being wildly present with my kids when I'm meant to not be working. But for me, like the way that I work is I work in nap times and I work in the evenings, and if my kids are playing happily, I'll work then as well. Ideally, I wouldn't be doing that. I'd just be playing happily with them or doing some of the house chores that get wildly neglected. But two things that do help me, that have helped, is firstly, I make sure I don't touch work at all on my Sabbath, which is one day of the week where I don't work. So that for me is Saturday night to Sunday night. Some people won't need this at all, but for me, I would literally work every single day if I didn't have this rule. So for me, I don't touch social media or my emails or work on that Sabbath, and that just helps me to have at least one day where I'm being present, and that tastes really good. Like last Sunday, I just played with my daughter. I don't let myself do that very often because I'm always like, I should do this errand, or I should do this cleaning, or I should do this work, but it just allowed me to stop, which was really important. And another thing that I've got, I should have brought it out with me, I've got a little thing called a brick. This isn't an ad for them. They're quite expensive, to be honest, but it's been helpful for me, and it's like a little device that I can stick on my fridge or anywhere in the house if I want to. And what I can do is I can tap that onto my phone and it will lock apps, and I can't open those apps again until I tap it again. I can't just, if you've got an iPhone, you can set app limits, but you can just say ignore, and I ignore it all the time. Whereas when I have this brick, when I have to tap this little thing on my fridge, I have to go back to the brick to unlock it. I do have like 5 emergency unlocks in case I've left the house and I really need to access something and I forgot to untap it. But in essence, it's a great way for me to be like, all right, kids are home, I'm not meant to be working, I'm going to tap this thing so that I can actually focus rather than getting doom scrolling or stressing about I need to get back to this person or DM this person or post this Instagram post. I just can't, and that's been helpful for me. And the other question I want to answer in this is, how has becoming a mum changed your approach to business? The main thing that I've seen for me is this idea that I don't have to do it all. And before having kids, I could literally just work 24/7 and it would impact nothing except for my husband, and he was working for himself too, so it kind of just worked. Whereas now that I have kids, I can't do that. I've got so many responsibilities as a mum, and I love that, but it means that I have to delegate. And so before I had kids, I had no one helping me with my business, whereas now I don't even know how many people I have. Like, it's not that many, but like 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever it is, 6 to 10, somewhere in there. I'll link a video in the description and right here in the video if you are watching on YouTube to my episode where I talk about my team and the different jobs they all have to help me. My point being is that I would never have outsourced if I didn't have to. I would have just kept on doing it all myself, and I would have stunted my own growth. But now that I ever had to outsource, my productivity is huge because I'm only focusing on the jobs that I can do. For example, when I record this podcast, once I've finished the actual Jacqui thinking and talking, I then pass that to my team to get that out into the world and to get that repurposed. I don't have to do all of those little jobs, but I would never have thought about doing that when I could have done it all myself. So when I've become a mum and I've chosen to be a mostly stay-at-home mum, it means that I can just do the jobs that I need to do and trust my team to do the rest. And that's been scary in terms of investment, but it also means the business has been able to grow in ways that I couldn't grow before because I was stunting my own growth because of my time restrictions, even when I had so much time. All right, next question is around my house build. So I am building a house at the moment. It is hopefully, at the time of listening to this, only about a month away from being finished, give or take. Things always go wrong, and I'm nervous saying that out loud on a podcast. But anyway, here we are. And it's really exciting. We've had this block that we purchased like 4.5 years ago, and it's finally going to come to fruition, and it's just wildly exciting. It wasn't ever something that I expected to do, was build a house. It was never like a goal to build a house, but me and my husband found the perfect block and in the perfect location, and we thought, all right, we might as well do this. So that's nearly happening. And the question that ChatGPT has given me is your personal home aesthetic similar to your brand? The answer is a hard no. My brand is really fun, playful, energetic, but I want my home to feel really calm and soft and nurturing. So my house is whites, warm oranges, terracotta kind of colors, warm earthy greens. The only thing that kind of is similar is I don't want it to be boring. ceiling. So there's a raked ceiling. There's lots of wood. There's some really cool, like the edge of my kitchen bench is rounded with like half wood rounds on it. My tiles are a little bit interesting. And so there's a few places where I've been a little bit unique in things because I don't want it to be boring. Like my brand isn't boring. Not that if you have a plain house, it's boring. But for me, I wanted something a bit more playful and fun and me, because I do hope to stay in this house for a little while unless God leads us elsewhere. And so for me, the house itself, the aesthetic is not like my brand. The only purple room is my daughter's room because she also loves purple. So I may be filming some content in there because it's going to be so cute. Everywhere else is really warm and cozy and soft and calm, which is not me normally and what you see in my branding. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit different, which is really fun. But obviously doing a little bit of funky tiles and stuff is where I've gone a little bit different and a little bit more like me. All right, last question is on behind the scenes / business wisdom. Again, there's a few good questions here, but I'm just going to touch on one of them. And that is, if you had to start your business again from scratch, what would you do differently? So for me, when I started my business, I was just a run-of-the-mill graphic designer. I was still in university actually when I started my business, and I just put my business out there and I was just designing for anyone who would have me. Guys, gals, neighbors, friends, anything at all, because I was terrified of turning down work because I really wanted work, which there's nothing wrong with that. I would probably do that again if I needed to, but I would probably niche sooner in terms of once I worked out that I loved working with women in business, and particularly online business, and I would have been like, all right, let's niche that down sooner, baby. But instead I kind of probably lulled around in the safe zone for a little bit too long, which meant that I worked with a few clients that I didn't love working with and was a bit tricky. And then two things I would do at that point is I would start building my email list. I didn't start building my email list until quite a few years into business, and if I had started sooner, I could have had more people now to be able to connect with and sell to. And so what I mean by building an email list is just launching a digital like a freebie or like a tip sheet or like just a download, a lead magnet to help give people something so that they would sign up to my email list, and I would just send out an email newsletter to them. And a benefit of that is you kind of get to hone your voice. Like these last few years of having a podcast has meant that I've every single week I've had to record something just like this, and so it's meant that I've learned and refined and honed on my voice, on my messaging, on how I want to speak to people, on making sure that I'm challenging myself to create content, because creating content, creating a podcast, talking to your email list, doing all these things, that doesn't ever come naturally. No one pops out of the room and being like, oh, I'm really great at business. Some of us are slightly better at business, but most of the time it's literally just practice and doing this something over and over again. So for me, having my email list sooner would have hopefully meant I was sending out a newsletter each week sooner, honing my message, creating my craft, and growing my business sooner, so that when I launched my online course, I could have launched it even sooner because I would have had a bigger email list sooner. So just setting that email list from the get-go, even if I just got 10 people that I'm talking to, 10 people is better than 0 people, and 10 people will soon become 100, which will soon become 1,000, which will soon become 10,000. And secondly, I would have pushed into my branding a little bit more. I redid my branding. My first brand was grey and white, then I transferred to pink and white, then I transferred to the beginning of what I have now. That pink and white evolution came when I realized I did want to work with women in business, but I just chose something that wasn't me. I chose a brand that I thought people wanted that wasn't representative of what I wanted to be at all, and it felt really restrictive and I didn't like it and I was embarrassed by it. And so I think I would have just not done that brand. Although, like, we all learn, like, that brand got me to where I am today, and I don't regret that. So who knows if I would do that differently. But in essence, pushing into a brand that I'm proud of, I think has been really important. But again, sometimes that takes time, which is why I really, really believe in being able to do your branding yourself as a business owner, because it means you can evolve as you get clarity, especially in those early stages. And if you're later on in business, and being able to evolve that as you go as well. Like last week, I changed my green just because I could, just because I knew that my old green wasn't quite fitting the feel I wanted my brand to have. So I got to evolve it to a new green. Whereas if I had to go and hire a designer for that, I would have had to wait months. I would have had to pay thousands just for a tweak in my brand. Because I knew how to do that, I could do it myself in-house and action things ASAP. And so if you want to call to action for this episode, feel free to work with me. I would love to work with you. I have kind of two main ways that you can do that. Firstly, if you want to kind of DIY your branding, this is for people who are at the start of their business, wanting to save money, wanting to have a professional brand without the professional price tag, then my DIY Design My Biz course is really great, and I highly recommend jumping in there. Or if you're a more established business owner and you're wanting to up-level your brand, maybe you're needing a rebrand, or maybe you're needing to have the graphics you're creating actually looking great, even though your branding is probably already okay, but you don't know how to actually use it well, or your team doesn't know how to use it well, let me and my team support you with that in kind of like a co-collaboration experience. Or if you're wanting to totally outsource, I do also have my design team studio who can do graphics for you. So thank you for listening to this. I hope you found something useful, or something sparked in your brain with a new idea or a new way of doing something. And I hope you let you behind the scenes a little bit about what life and business is like for me. So thanks for being here, and I will see you next week for another episode. Bye.